Hi, I'm Jenny Ray, the Managing Director of Management Consulted, and I'm back today, and we're starting a new series. We're calling this Advanced Case Interviews, and we're going deeper into the case interview puzzle to try to help you understand some of the really key issues that you need to be aware of if you're going to solve case interviews consistently and well. One of the most important things that you need to know about what we're going to cover today, which is case frameworks, is that by no means are we covering everything that we could say about case frameworks in this one video. In fact, we're barely doing it justice because this single topic alone, when we're doing an 8-hour boot camp, takes up 2 to 2.5 hours of the ultimate time together. So today we're just going to glance over a high-level view of this, but we do have more resources available in our Consulting Interview Bible, in our one-on-one sessions, and also in our 8-hour boot camps if you want to come to one of those or invite us to come to you. Just wanted to make sure that we said that before we get started so you didn't think that this video alone was the ultimate authority on case frameworks. So let me dive into what we're going to talk about today on case frameworks. First of all, as you know from the anatomy, case frameworks are what you use to solve and open the case. It's really important that you think of both of them, not just to open the case, but also to solve the case, because the frameworks are meant to be highly practical, very action-oriented, and incredibly clear when you're walking through the process. As I walk through the 4 key management consulted frameworks that we recommend you use to solve any case you could potentially find, hopefully what you'll see is that all of these are very action-oriented, they are very clear, and they're also driven by 2 levels of data, not just the high level of data, not just the conceptual understanding of a topic, but actually a data-driven, metrics-based analysis at the lower level. So there are 4 key frameworks that we're going to talk through today. The first framework is market sizing. Market sizing is one of my favorite frameworks. It rarely comes up as a standalone framework in a case, unless you're doing a screening round case, or unless the interviewer has had so much fun talking to you in your fit portion of the interview that they just have a brief period of time in which to use the case on you. The market sizing case is more aptly used as practice for either the math portion of a case or for just general structure and communication. It's a great entree into cases. If you've never done cases before, market sizing is where you should start. The key for market sizing is breaking them up into the same 3 pieces that you break math up into. First, the algebra, the steps that you'll use to break down the problem. Second, the assumptions that you'll need to make in order to make sure that you understand what key data points you're going to fit into that structure. And finally, the calculations. The calculations are great tests for beginning to work with big numbers, and they help you get smart on an industry really quickly. Market sizing cases can be solved with 2 variations of the framework. One is top-down, usually starts with a population approach, so a very large number, and that pares it down to a smaller issue. The other is bottom-up, where often you'll focus on a channel of distribution or a place where something is sold, and you'll identify in that channel how much of something is sold, for example, in a day, and then you'll roll it up to the annual and countrywide, for example, numbers, which are much bigger. So top-down, big numbers to smaller, bottom up, small numbers to larger. Those 2 approaches together are really effective for the market sizing case. Moving on from market sizing, the second type of case, and probably the most important that you will need to not only memorize, but more importantly understand for case interviews, is the profitability framework. Profitability is made up of 2 key balancing sides of the equation. One part is revenues and the other part is costs. Hopefully, at the end of the day, your revenues and the client's revenues that you're serving exceed their costs. That's one of your goals as a consultant, to make sure that happens and continues to happen into perpetuity. How do you analyze revenues and costs underneath the key level of the high level? Well, the first thing that you need to do is break down revenues into prices and volumes. Revenues aren't just a large number. A company doesn't just make something off of one sale every year. They have multiple products and services, all at often even different prices for each product or service, but definitely different prices for each of the different products and services. So there's some kind of calculation that you would do across the board in order to identify what the total number is in order to calculate the revenues. On the cost side of the equation, you have 2 categories of costs, fixed costs and variable costs. And both of these are important in the operation of the business. Fixed costs, in the way that we think about it at Management Consulted, are stair-stepped costs. So they do increase as a business grows, but not with every single unit delivered. Only as the business grows and it gets to its current capacity would you have to increase fixed costs in the future. Variable costs, much more easy. They're direct costs that go into the production or the delivery of a product or service. service. So when you combine the 4 of these areas together, prices and volumes on the revenue side and fixed costs and variable costs on the cost side, you've got the 4 key parts of the profit equation. Now, again, you don't just have to memorize these. You really need to understand them. And understanding them is understanding not only these equations and the numbers underneath them, but what influences them, what changes price, what changes volumes, what affects fixed costs, what drives variable costs in a business. These are the things that you, in the second level of analysis, will need to understand. And we go into much greater detail about this in additional resources that we offer. The third type of framework that's essential to use is the market study framework. The market study framework takes the profitability framework and flips it on its head. Whereas a profitability framework is really useful when you understand the internal operations of a company, the market study framework starts externally and then moves internally. The result of both of them is the same. You're looking for profits. So for the market study framework, the first 3 categories, the market, the competitors, and the customers all go into helping you get the numbers that you need to determine the size of a company's revenues. On the internal piece, the second part of it, you have the company and the product or service. Those 2 pieces really address the fixed costs with the company, and the product or service really address the variable costs. What you're doing here is, instead of starting with an internal look of the company like you did with the profitability framework, you're looking externally at the factors that are going to influence each part of the profitability framework. Almost every case that can be solved with a market study framework can also be solved with the profitability framework, and vice versa. But it's really helpful to have both of the tools in your tool belt to help you understand some of the key influences. The final and fourth framework that we're going to highlight today is Management Consulted's mergers and acquisitions framework. Mergers and acquisitions cases can be some of the scariest because they're testing things like finance principles. But the good news is that most consulting firms don't go deep into multiples and discounted cash flows. They're much more interested in the due diligence strategy of whether one company should buy another one or not. And ultimately, this comes down to 4 key areas. The first is the market. Most buyers don't want to buy a company that's in an unattractive market. So make sure that as you are breaking down the process and thinking about your clients' concerns, one of the things they'll always look for is a declining market or a market that's not very big, not big enough to be substantial for their ultimate revenue goals. The second thing that they'll look at is the company. So inside a market, if they determine they want to play in that market, they want to make sure they're picking the right company inside the market. How do they decide? Well, often it comes down to the financials. Does the company have strong operating revenues? Does it have good profits? And do you expect some of those trends to increase over time? So are they well positioned against competitors in the market? Once you look at the market and then the company and where it plays in the market, the next and most important part of the structure is a part that we call post-acquisition strategy. Post-acquisition strategy ties the first 2 pieces together, but says once we buy this company, we're going to do some things differently. And here is going to be the expected result of the changes. The expected result of the changes is how a company makes more money than they purchased the original company for in the first place. So the market and the company valuation really help you identify how much you should pay. The post-acquisition strategy will help you determine how much you can make over time, whether you hold the company for cash flows or whether you plan to sell it in the future. So understanding the post-acquisition strategy really can help you break down what the target company's plans would be if you buy them. So how you will influence their future as an operating company. The fourth bucket that we recommend here is really a key bucket. We call it risks and benefits. Oftentimes in the sale and purchase of a company, and oftentimes we're representing the buyer as the consulting firm. So in the purchase of a company, the one key thing that's really difficult to get a handle on is how you value intangible assets. Things like intellectual property or the fit of a management team. Oftentimes in consulting cases, you have to pick some numbers and use scenarios to identify what it's likely to happen after you purchase the company. So if there are key risks, you want to identify what the worst downside would be, what the medium case would be, and what the best case would be. If there are key opportunities, you want to do the same thing. What's the maximum value that this could be worth? What's the medium value? What's the best conservative value that you want to put into the picture. So across the board, the risks and benefits category is a way to quantify some of the intangible issues that go into purchasing a case. And we really use it to help you stay focused on the first three buckets, the financial issues, and make sure that you don't focus too much on all those intangibles at the end. The mergers and acquisitions framework really incorporates all of the pieces that we've talked about already. It incorporates, first of all, an understanding of the market. Second of all, an understanding of the company's current profitability. And third of all, an understanding of the future profitability of the company in light of market forces. So enjoy using this framework because it is the most comprehensive and a really fun one to use. Across the board, we think that these 4 frameworks are useful to solve any case that you will ever find in management consulting case interviews. And we hope that you have fun going through the process of not only memorizing them, but making sure that you understand them. If you have further questions or want additional resources, we've got all you could possibly need on the subject at managementconsulted.com.